What happens when the X-Men play Dungeons and Dragons? Well, you get Realm of X. Today, on the New Mutants. Welcome to yet another edition of your favorite comic book summary channel, I hope. I'm Laz, and I'm your local mutant provocateur. And today we're talking Realm of X number 1. But before we discuss this book, let's take a look at the covers that I have. In this instance, I actually have both the regular direct edition cover as well as this Marrow variant right here. As you can see, I'm going to put them down. First, the regular cover was done by artist Stephanie Hans, and the Marrow cover variant was done by Karen S. Darbo and Jim Campbell. Let's please enjoy these covers. Look at them. All right. And now let's check out our writer for this epic tale. It belongs to Torin Gronbeck. Our artist is Diogenes Neves, colorist Rain Barreto, and our letterer is Clayton Cowles. And as always, editor-in-chief of Marvel Comics, the one, the only, CB Cebulski. But before we dive in, don't forget to stick around for when I dust off a book from my own collection to show you. Now, let's get into it. Our story begins with Magik. That is, Ilyana Rasputin waking in a dream-like fantasy land. At least it would have been a fantasy land, except all of the screaming. Immediately, we are taken into a battle between mutants and trolls. I'm not sure. But we have Magik, Danny Moonstar, aka Mirage, Typhoid Mary Fisk, Soraya Kadir, aka Dust, and Sarah Rushman, better known as Marrow, all up in this battle. Magik tries to use her teleportation abilities, and she is unable, or forgot. A group of warriors on horses ride by. They urge Magik to hide. Meanwhile, Mirage is trying to get Typhoid Mary in the fight, but she brings up a good question. Who is the enemy? Mirage suggests it's the people attacking with overwhelming force. Dust is not sure about that, wondering if Danny is right, what does that make us? Right? You know, the mutants are always attacking with all... You know what I'm saying. Anyways, Mary decides to enter the battle somewhat reluctantly. Okay, Norse mythology time. Vanaheim in the Norse mythology is home to the Vanir. These are gods sort of like the Asgardians. Vanir or Vanaheim is one of the 9 realms, though Realm of X refers to it as one of the 10 realms. I don't know what the difference is. If you want to learn more, Vanaheim is in the Poetic Eddas from the 13th century, so I would suggest reading some of those, or, Wikipedia. Just know we're getting close to sort of Asgardian stuff here, so that's the direction we're heading into. So this Vanir, Traben, is like, we've been expecting you. Also, where is the one you call Curse? Curse is a mutant that is missing. Magik said she was in her arms before they traveled to Vanaheim. And now, I have to know, who is Curse? Created by Jerry Duggan and Matteo Loli, Curse is a young girl, and she first appeared in Marauders number 1 from 2019. According to the MarvelFandom.com wiki, Curse has a power that causes bedeviling happenstance to anyone spoken to when she focuses her mind on it. She seems kind of like an anti-Domino, and I kind of wonder, what would happen if Domino and Curse ever met or fought? Anyways, that's Curse. And with that little intro, we cut to Curse, who is wandering through this fantasy land in her ball gown from the Hellfire Gala. She's having a blast. Look at her face. She makes quick work of some wolves, right? Using her powers, and she washes their mouths out with soap. She's having a lot of fun. She's having a good time. So we're back to our mutant friends, and there's a little funny scene with Typhoid Mary and one of the Vanir where Mary is complaining about having to walk in mud and dirt in her gala boots. And the Vanir is like, well, madam, you can ride my horse. Mary's like, nah, I'm not an equestrian. And the Veneer just picks her up and puts her on there. And she's kind of upset that, she was grabbed. But then she's like, well, I don't have to walk in it anymore. I don't know. I thought it was kind of funny. But, that's kind of what Mary is there for. She's there to kind of crack a few sarcastic comments. Meanwhile, Danny is reaching out to the animals of Vanaheim, Vanaheim, to help in their search for Curse. We focus on Magik, and she feels very helpless without her powers, and a little guilty that she lost Curse. She wonders aloud if Curse is scared. Marrow's like, no, it's Vanaheim that should be worried. The mutants and the Veneer arrive at House Molt, the home of Traben. It's not an actual house, it's a castle. This is when we cut back to Curse, who has found some of the trolls. In a very Lord of the Rings moment, which is most certainly a reference here, the trolls argue a bit about how they should cook her. Curse is like, hey, bad things happen to people around me, or to me, the trolls are like, haha, you're probably joking. They attack her. She tells them a joke. Why did the rock troll break up with his girlfriend? Because she took him for granite. The trolls turn to stone. As trolls do. Back at House Molt, Sand returns from a recon mission, and there is no sign of Curse. Mary, who is the comedic relief for sure, cracks a couple of jokes, and then Danny reveals what they've learned about the Veneer. The Veneer are at war with someone called the White Witch. Magik informs Marrow that Vanaheim is a realm of divination and prophecy. Marrow wants to know why the Veneer were expecting them. Traben, aka Bargain Bin Boromir, according to Marrow, approaches them, and Marrow demands to know everything. We cut back to Curse, and we see the trolls who have turned to stone. They're actually a pile of rubble now. Following Curse is a mysterious, shadowy figure, and she exchanges a few words with the crushed stone trolls who are still able to talk. It's very weird. Anyways, who is this mysterious shadowy figure? We don't know yet. Back to Traben and our mutant friends. Traben is discussing the history of the Veneer and how they left their cities to avoid destruction from a previous prophecy. Traben is like, okay, the second destruction we prophesized actually mentions Marrow, Dust, Mirage, and Mary. Not Magik, just want to let people know. And Traben shows them to another room as he explains a chaotic power that not even fate understands. He suggests that it could be a person, possibly alluding to Curse. Once in the other room, which is a library, we see statues of those four mutants, Marrow, Dust, Mirage, and Typhoid Mary. Mary is mean and tells Magik, oh, even fate thinks you're insignificant. And then House Molt is attacked by giant white eagles who start trying to snatch Veneer off the ground. The mutants leap into action, and along with the Veneer and Mary, who eventually helps, they fight most of them off, but sadly the eagles are able to take a young child, and only this one young child, from the stronghold. As Curse is near a river, she sees these eagles, and she sees the boy who is crying for help. She demands that the eagles put the boy down, and the eagles attack her, and that's when she is like, hey, pluck you. That's P-L-U-C-K. And guess what happens? The eagles lose all of their feathers, and they drop the boy into this rushing stream, and of course there's a waterfall. Curse tries to help the boy, but is physically unable to help this boy. And as the boy cries out one more time, I want to go home, Curse replies, then go home. And her power manifests, and the boy is teleported home and back to House Molt, right into the hands of his mother. This causes Curse pain. The boy is teleported home into his mother's arms, proclaiming, the girl saved him. The mutants are nearby, and they figure out real quick, oh, it's Curse. They know she's still alive, but they really don't know what she's up to. We go back to Curse, who is hurting and in pain. Then someone arrives. It's probably the White Witch. She cradles Curse in her arms and says, "Let me take you home." Meanwhile, her inner monologue, is saying she cares for this girl, this weapon. And that's the book. Before we continue, I just want to thank you for making it this far. And I want to know, I got a question. Does this fantasy setting and perhaps setup for an epic quest make for a good X-Men comic? I think it does, but what is your opinion? I personally enjoy the tie-in to the Norse mythos. It makes the Marvel universe feel much more connected, a little bit smaller, even though it's so expansive. But what do you think? Also, while you're there, feel free to hit that like and subscribe. You know the routine, of course. Let's just get back to it. Time for my key takeaways. Let's talk about Magik. She doesn't have her powers. She can't teleport. My suspicion is that the teleportation issue, it's all linked to the Krakoan gates. Interesting fact, Shadowcat cannot usually use the Krakoan gates normally, but with them being inoperable to the other mutants, she now can. Very interesting, two teleportation issues simultaneously. I suspect something or someone is influencing teleportation on a very wide scale, and it'll be interesting to see how all of this ties together. Of course, I could be wrong. Next, how will Dust, Marrow, Mirage, and Typhoid Mary fulfill the prophecy? How is Curse involved? What will happen? I don't know if these are takeaways, but these are just questions that I have that I want answered. I think that it'll be really interesting, and hopefully they'll come back, being either more powerful or changing things for good. That's what I really hope. But this is kind of a fun fantasy setup. It feels a little more lighthearted than some of the other parts of the Fall of X, which are very dark. So hopefully we're in for some fun. And lastly, who or what is the White Witch? I don't know. It could be an established character that I don't recognize, but maybe it isn't. Maybe it is. If it is, leave a comment and tell me, hey, that's so-and-so. You should know them by now. Or if it's not, just leave a comment. Otherwise, I'm going to find out in a few books, I hope. Look, I recommend this book so far. If you ever wanted to see, a Lord of the Rings, which has at least 2 references in this book, but with mutants and not hobbits, this is your comic. This really feels like a D&D fantasy adventure, and I'm here for it, not just because I can't stop playing Baldur's Gate 3 right now. And with that, let's take a look at our top 3 panels. So the first panel we have is of Curse, and it really tells me a lot about her character. She's running through this fantasy world, carefree, still wearing her Hellfire Gala outfit, a huge grin on her face. It's a mutant child in a magical world. This really brings me joy. My number 2 panel is actually this 2-page panel right here with the battle between the forces of the White Witch and the Veneer. Excellently detailed, showing the ferociousness of the battle, along with the mutants watching and wondering what's happening. I dig it, and I dig these larger 2-piece panels. But my number 1 panel is actually going to go to the very first panel in the book, where Magik has arrived in Vanaheim. This beautiful and idealistic fantasy setting, they just take center stage. You have the butterflies, the greenery, the light coming down. It's really a gorgeous panel. Illyana looks, sort of like a fairy tale character. That's totally what's being invoked. Please enjoy this image. Before we say goodbye, however, it's time to share a book from my own collection. And today it is New X-Men 133. It's the first appearance of Dust. This is a beautiful Frank Quitely cover. Simple in design and execution, but it makes so much sense. This came out at a time when the U.S. was just beginning, its brutal 20-year occupation of Afghanistan, and anti-Muslim sentiment was very high. So the X-Men introducing a devout Muslim made so much sense. Once again, it showcases Marvel Comics' progressive values, and it's something that I always like about the X-Men, is that no matter what, they are pro-diversity all the time. And that's it. Next time, we're going to see what good old Alex Summers, aka Havoc, and Madeline Pryor have been up to in Dark X-Men #1. Excelsior, mutants!